Guys, Keith Thurman said a while back, and he told Manny Pacquiao, he was putting pressure on, not pressure, but he was telling Manny Pacquiao to sign the contract. What that tells me, that there's already been a contract drafted for the Keith Thurman fight. Now, if there's been a contract drafted for the Keith Thurman fight, what does that mean? Does that mean that Manny Pacquiao's got a contract, or his team's got a contract from Al Haymon and Keith Thurman for that fight, but he's got that contract but not signed it yet? What is Manny Pacquiao waiting on? Is he waiting on... Is he waiting on other options? Absolutely. Manny Pacquiao's got a lot of options right now. You know, there's talk of him fighting these exhibition fights. There's talk of, you know, Danny Garcia. Is he waiting for the Danny Garcia-Adrian Granados fight, which happens on the same night as Khan Crawford, which will be next week? Is he waiting for that? Possibly. Possibly. There's a great possibility that he is. There's a great possibility that he is. Because, in my opinion, Manny Pacquiao wants as many options. And I actually think he's looking at the fights. I think he wants to have a couple fights before he jumps into those massive fights. I think he wants to have those big paydays before he jumps into a big fight with Spence or Crawford or someone of that size. Ideally, he wants Mayweather, but I don't think he's going to get that. I think Mayweather's made it clear that he's not going to fight Pacquiao. So, for me, I think Pacquiao wants to have fights which he thinks are not as high risk. Listen, Thurman and Danny Garcia are risky fights. They're not easy fights. They're not easy fights at all. But I think he thinks he can beat them. And he thinks in his head that Garcia and Thurman are a lot easier than Crawford and Spence. I believe Pacquiao has a very good chance if he fights both of those guys that he can win. I think he could beat Danny Garcia and Thurman. I think the Spence and Crawford fights are tough. They're very tough. And Pacquiao would go into those fights as underdog. Would Pacquiao go into the fights against Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman as underdog? Not in my opinion. I don't think he goes into those fights as an underdog. I think he goes into the Crawford and Spence fights as underdog, but not in the Danny Garcia and Thurman fights. I think those are more... They are fights that Manny Pacquiao is more than capable of winning. They're tough fights, don't get me wrong, but they're fights that he's more than capable of winning. So I just think Manny Pacquiao right now is weighing up his options. I do feel that there'll be a contract there with Keith Thurman, because I think ideally that's the fight that makes sense for both of them next, really, because it gives Manny Pacquiao an opportunity. Because the Danny Garcia fight is probably just as risky as a Thurman fight, but it doesn't probably make as much money, and it doesn't have a world title at the end of it. You know, Manny Pacquiao is the regular WBA champion. Keith Thurman is the super WBA champion, which means he holds a super belt. So he's the actual WBA world champion. So Manny Pacquiao, by beating Keith Thurman, becomes the super champion. So I think that would interest Manny Pacquiao, because like I said, why would you fight Danny Garcia in just as risky a fight and probably doesn't pay as much, and it's not for a world title? So it makes more sense for Pacquiao to fight Keith Thurman. And obviously Danny Garcia's been active. Keith Thurman's not been very active. You know, he's come off injury. This is probably the best time for Pacquiao to get Thurman. And his last performance wasn't very good. So I do feel that Manny Pacquiao, if he is, again, we don't know where, because Manny Pacquiao's not said anything about his foreseeable future, but I do think he should consider taking the Keith Thurman fight. I think the Keith Thurman fight for him would make massive sense right now. Massive sense. It makes huge sense for Pacquiao to accept that fight with Keith Thurman. I think if he takes that fight, I think it'll be good for Pacquiao. I think it will be. I think it makes a lot of sense, makes him a lot of money, and I think it's a fight that, in my opinion, he wins. So this is what I think he should do next. I think he should take that fight with Keith Thurman if he's still got, you know, if he's still got his hunger for fighting, which I think he does. I think that fight with Keith Thurman needs to be considered, because, like I said, I think Keith Thurman for me is a fighter there to be for the taking. So I think Pacquiao should definitely take that fight. But leave your thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think. Do you think there's a contract there waiting for Manny Pacquiao to sign? Because Keith Thurman said it a while back that signed the contract. That means there's a contract being drafted. Leave your thoughts, guys. And guys, remember to please like, share and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video.